the
We
Got
Got
It podcast. And welcome back to all of our lovely listeners. And for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, if you're wondering why the heck we always do that weird "we got it" at the beginning, got to tell you about the great Will Tiemann. I recently learned not everybody loves him. That's fine. I love him. I grew up experiencing Michigan State basketball by listening to it. My family never had cable TV, so we were always like out in the driveway, whatever, in the garage, listening to games, in the kitchen, listening to games. Football was always George Blaha, basketball it's always Will Tiemann. And if you know anything about Will Tiemann, when he is calling a game and someone makes a long jumper, he always says, "He got it. He got it." And so it felt like when we were starting our little podcast and talking about, hey, like we want to make Spartan Sports approachable for any sort of fan, whether you are like on the message boards knowing about all the potential new recruits that could possibly be coming in, you're scoping out the transfer portal, you're seeing where guys are taking visits, or you are a super casual fan and you're lucky if you know the starting player's name. We got it. We got it for everything. And you are welcome here, and we're so glad you're here. Yeah, we're gonna dive right into the episode. I just want to give a little shout out. Jonah, you are decked out in Nudge gear over there.
That's
And
true.
like, this is not sponsored. This is not like, they haven't asked us to do this. I just like genuinely really appreciate the people over there. They're so kind. And they have just been dropping some sick gear and new designs. They came out with one recently that has like Sparty sitting in a chariot getting pulled by two horses, and I absolutely need to order that. So just a little like shout out to them for supplying us and all of Sparty Nation with some really great gear. If you haven't checked them out, they have so many options. And we're super thankful for their partnership with Spartans Illustrated. The We Got It podcast is an official podcast of Spartans Illustrated. If you haven't checked them out, be sure to head on over to the App Store, their website, SpartansIllustrated.com, to get even more content related to Spartan sports. And, I was feeling pretty good because Jeff Kohler himself, Jackson Kohler's father, who is just wonderful, subscribed to Spartans Illustrated this week and gave us a huge shout out. And Jeff, if you're listening, we appreciate you. We appreciate your son so much. We're going to get into that next. Take it away, Jonah.
Yeah, it's been a busy January so far for the men's basketball
Oh my gosh.
team.
Booked.
Seems like they've every 7-day span, it's been like 3 games, or every 8-day span, 3 games. And this past week, the men's team is coming off 2 wins, one at home against Indiana, and then one on Saturday against Washington out in Seattle. And the Spartans won both of those. Won that game in Seattle, coming off 3 straight wins at home. Spartans are now 16-2, and I think 6-1 in Big Ten play, and really rolling right now and in a great position as we roll towards the end of January.
Yeah. I think that I have a very selective memory because you and I were talking the other day about last year when we played Indiana, and you were like, yeah, we were at that game. And, it was like Tom Izzo was going to break the record and do all I was like, I have no memory of this. So I think I just repressed all the bad memories. But that was not the case this year. We did not fall to Indiana. Unfortunately, they're one of 3 teams that we have to play twice this season, correct? Yes, I am like 99% confident that. So we will definitely have to see Indiana on the road. However, getting that win at home was phenomenal. Jeremy Fierce Jr. had a career high again with 23 points this time.
Yeah.
I feel like he keeps upping it by like 2 points every single time.
I think it's like the 5th
time
or 6th time that he's either tied or beaten his career high in scoring this
season. Yeah, that's crazy. And didn't he have something like 10 assists?
Yeah, had a double too.
Oh my gosh. So just a, phenomenal game for him. Especially coming off of, I'm like getting all of my games mixed up. I don't know what day it is anymore. The new year is not off to a great start for the Wilson household. We've just been both working way too much and not sleeping enough. What was the game before that where he I was at that game, the Northwestern game. Picked up 2 fouls early. won't talk about those calls, but I had a lot of thoughts, and just really struggled that whole first half and kind of into the second half. So seeing him just bring it all game versus Indiana was super encouraging and just speaks a lot to like the kind of player that he continues to develop into.
Yeah, I think in the last 6 games so far in January, he's averaging like 18 and a half points and like 8.5
Oh
assists.
my gosh.
Just playing at a really, really high level. Seems to be being more assertive on the offensive end, pushing the pace and the fast break. Really kind of being aggressive and getting towards his spot. So getting to the lane, getting to kind of the elbow for his little pull-up jumpers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Something where he's been passive at times throughout his career where he's not necessarily looking to score, but last week or so or last 2 weeks since he's
Yeah.
kind of been more assertive, his offense has looked quite a bit different. I think it adds a really hard aspect to defend in this team when he's being aggressive and hitting his shots at the level he has been over the last couple weeks.
100%. And I can't, you and I spent so much time talking about Michigan State basketball. I can't remember like what we've talked about, just the two of us versus on the podcast. But I feel like two things that I don't ever shut up about, especially this season, has been like the lack of dribble penetration and just how it makes our team very one dimensional. Like, yes, we can feed the ball inside. Yes, Jackson Kohler, Carson Cooper, Cam Ward have been stepping up in huge ways in the paint. Setting the screens to be able to get the outside shots. Like Michigan State's been doing a great job of that. But if you don't have someone who can drive to the hoop and put that pressure on in between those two spaces, like it just makes it a lot easier for other teams to defend against us. And we've talked about how Divine has been such a huge factor in being able to open up that aspect of the game for us. If I'm being honest, I wasn't really expecting Jeremy to get there this season. Like I thought like he just needs more time to be able to develop that. And to see him just turn that aspect of his game on in the last 2 weeks, like against Indiana, he was going coast to coast. Like just kind of skating around people, like getting to the hoop, and it was just phenomenal to see. And I think that's why it truly has like opened up his game and Michigan State's game. The second thing that I have never, ever, ever shut up about is to use the glass. Use the glass. It is your friend. You literally have a little, you have a basketball rim. It's a circle that 2 basketballs can fit through at the same time. But it's not just floating in space, just levitating. It has a little friend at the back. There have a backboard. There is even like a little square on the back of the backboard that shows like, hey, if you hit it in the square, the angles are going to help you put it in the rim. And nobody uses the glass except Jeremy Fears has been using that dang glass ever since the Northwestern game, and it has been helping him so much. I think it was against Indiana. Maybe it was against Washington. I don't know. I can't keep anything straight. They showed about halfway through the second half, like 6 clips of Jeremy Fears driving to the hoop and making baskets. And 5 of those, the man used the glass for. And I'm just like, it's there. It's your friend. Start using it. So, Jeremy, bless you. Thank you for using that glass and making my little heart happy. But I say that jokingly, and I know you're like, oh my gosh, Abby's on this spiel again. No. But like, it's so true, and I think that's part of why you've been seeing his average going up these last few games, is because not only is he driving to the hoop, but he's not like fading away and trying to lay this basketball up 5 feet away from the hoop, which I feel like we see so many times where he gets rejected. Oftentimes he draws the foul at least, but how many more times now is he going to be able to pick up that and one? If you are getting, I even just think about like the angle of the ball. If you are fading away, you're trying to make a layup and you're going over your defender straight to the rim, like they're going to be able to block that so much more easily than if you're laying it back and off the backboard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Definitely. I love it. I love seeing it from him. It's been great. I mean, yeah, you're using that to your advantage. And I think you bring up a good point about him. I think not just going into the lane looking for a foul, but also looking to score too, and get the basketball around defenders and not just trying to get 2 shots at the free throw line. I think that assertiveness has been maybe has caught defenders off guard a little bit because they're expecting, hey, he's going to the lane, trying to draw a foul. But no, like being more assertive and trying to get that ball off the glass and into the hoop has been big for him these last couple of weeks. And with him playing at this level, I think it makes everybody around him also play better too, because it just gives defenses another element that you have to worry about and look to defend. And I think if he continues to carry this, it's going to be a positive sign for this team and continues to kind of push their ceiling higher and higher.
Definitely. And maybe it's just like the bias in that I'm aware of it and I'm looking for it more now, but I feel like I've started to see like our big men use the glass more too. There was an absolutely nasty move that Kohler made. I think it was against Washington, where he literally, I don't understand it. The man has his back to the rim. Like the rim is behind him. He's getting rolled around and he manages to thrust the ball back up and over his shoulder, kind of like rolls it off the back of the rim and into the hoop. And I was just like, how did that go in? This is crazy. But you know, when you got a little friend back there and you use it, this ball's going to go in a lot more times.
Yeah. I mean, Jackson Kohler, I mean, good segue.
Oh my gosh.
Has also been playing at a
Just
really
beast.
high level. Look at this Washington game, and probably his like lowest output game of the season,
Yes.
but still had 7 points and 7 rebounds. The first game all year that he hasn't been double digit scoring. And the fact that too, like he's been able to have this shot from the outside, and I think he's shooting like 48.7% from three.
That's insane.
And that's with, I think, going like 0 for 4,
Right.
0 for 5 against Washington.
Yeah, if
Before
you take
that,
out the Washington
he was
game.
shooting over 50%.
Weren't you saying something about him that like in the history of
college basketball,
Yes,
no
okay.
player has averaged a double-double while also shooting above 50%.
So prior to the Washington game, like he was the only player in NCAA basketball history to do that.
I don't know. So it's nobody's ever finished the season
Okay.
at that point.
Okay.
So I don't.
That's
I'm sure
so
there's been guys at
interesting.
certain points in the season.
Yeah.
But having done that over halfway through this season, really impressive feat, and just the chemistry between him and Jeremy at the top of the arc.
Yes.
To get so many open looks from there, to the point where like when Jackson shoots from that kind of corner three, or not corner three, but
anywhere around along the outside,
and as you think it's going to go in, and it has for the most part.
Yeah.
And that's really, I feel like we see this so often with big men at Michigan State, is they kind of unlock this 3-point game their junior or senior season, and it just brings a whole new dynamic to their game. We've seen defenses really on both Jackson and Cooper really aggressive at doubling it when they get it into the post and making it hard to even get the ball to them in the low post. But when you have this kind of other element to your game, like if they take away Jackson's post scoring, he has this other element where he's still able to be a really effective offensive player. So I think it's going to give a challenge for defenses on how do we really play him, because if we're really trying to force shots outside and collapse down low, it's going to allow these open shots that we've been seeing from Jackson. And then against Washington, they didn't really have that double. They were kind of letting them play one-on-one, and we know how effective both him and Cooper can be one-on-one down and low. So, yeah, I think it's just a challenge for a lot of teams to be like, how do we defend these two bigs? Because it's kind of like pick your poison for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you think about Michigan State transition ball and how much that lob threat to Coop is from Jeremy Fears, from Divine. Like, there's just so many different ways that Michigan State is being able to develop their attacks, I think, in the month of January. I mean, you look at how effective we were in November and December, and then I feel like we've picked it up another notch going into January. one other aspect too that I'm just thinking about going back to, Divine and Jeremy being able to handle the ball inside, being able to drive to the hoop. So I feel like so often, man, even thinking back to Hogard, like oftentimes he would drive and then like stop and either dribble back out or dish. And I think especially Jeremy early in his career, when he would drive, you would always expect the dish. And I think that's a lot of times where we would generate turnovers. But now that Jeremy is actually successfully getting to the hoop, now that Divine is successfully getting to the hoop, you actually can dish and get it into the post and open things up that way too. Like that's what I'm saying, because I think I noticed that a lot against Indiana. It's just so hard to get it into that post. But once Jeremy started driving, I can't remember again if it was against Indiana or Washington or where it was, but he had a couple of just like nasty, like little no look passes, little feeders right in between two defenders, to Kohler, to Cooper, and then it's in. And it truly just opens our game up on so many aspects. Another thing that I think has really opened our game up is establishing consistency at that number 2 spot, which we think back to the beginning of January over Christmas break games. We were like, this is something that we desperately have to lock in. And I think all credit for that goes to Kurtang and to Jordan Scott. Both of those guys, I think, have stepped up and locked it in. Jordan Scott, I would argue, has been pretty locked in with his effort, with his mental focus, I would say kind of the whole season, but it's just been really cool to see his game actually lock in. Like shots are finally falling for him. I think he's just being a little bit more decisive too when he's in the game. And while his hustle previously made up for a lot of that, having that decisiveness, that confidence in his own game, I think is just making him so much more of a threat across the court. And Kurtang, man, seeing his confidence handling the ball, you and I have talked about that a lot. Like he just physically looks more comfortable if he's dribbling at the top of the key, if he's bringing it around the top when he's passing, like just his decision making for both of them, honestly, just seems to have really elevated their game in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, for both of those guys, their shots are starting to fall too. I mean, for Kurtang from the outside, I think I think he's had at least 3 threes in both the last 2 games. And if you get that out of him, that's like
fantastic.
awesome.
Yes.
And then, like you said, with Jordan Scott just being more decisive, it's been awesome to see him play with just seemingly more confidence in his game, where he isn't just going to be the guy that passes it or takes a wide open shot, but can
like seeing him dribble in and like take a little floater and knock it down. It's like, yeah, you can do that. That's so awesome.
Exactly. And I think you're going to just be able to see that increased confidence more and more from him, because everything else in his game, like you said, has been awesome with rebounding, defending, those hustle plays. But if you can kind of now unlock a little bit more of his offensive game, where he's hitting shots from the outside, being a little bit more decisive, and not just kind of being a swing pass guy or a guy who's going to slow things down, but really is another threat on the offensive side of the ball in the half court. And that's, again, Michigan State has been needing more scoring from the wing positions. In the last couple of weeks, seeing both Scott and Tang just have increased confidence while also seeing their shots go in is a very positive sign for this team.
I'd be really curious to see how many, I wonder if there's like any sort of stat for this. I feel like early in the beginning of January and maybe even over Christmas break, like our half court offense was just like so many times we're whittling down the shot clock, and then we're just like throwing up a bad shot or barely getting it off or having a lot of shot clock violations. I'd be curious to actually see if there's been a difference in that in the last couple of games and couple of weeks, because anecdotally, like I feel like our half court offense has been better. And I think Kerr, Tang, and Jordan Scott have a lot to do with that, and Jeremy's ability to just dribble and drive. But I'd be curious to see, like, has that actually improved? Have we had less like hurries or less, time or more time left in the shot clock when we get the ball in? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've seen we're not necessarily as reliant on the fast break.
Yeah.
being able to generate good looks in the half court is going to be big for this team. And the more guys who are contributing offensively, who are knocking down shots, the better it's going to be in the half court offense. And I think as some of these guys like Kurtang and Jordan Scott and even Cam Ward are continuing to get confidence, kind of figuring out their role on the team, the more consistent I think we're going to see that half-court offense from Michigan State. But it really does start with Jeremy Fears, and I think having him be more assertive, especially in those late shot clock situations where he's not just, like you said, settling for a three, but attacking the basket at the very least, maybe drawing a foul or drawing an extra defender and getting an open look for a different guy. I think all of those things have definitely been improved over the last couple weeks. And there's been some stretches like against Northwestern when Jeremy was out, kind of the first half against Indiana when it was pretty much just Jeremy Fears making things happen. But outside of that, it just things have been moving more smoothly.
Yes.
Less hiccups, less, I think, just like grogginess. I think we've seen some of the, especially some of those games out of Christmas. It just seemed like
just, I feel like always the case a little bit.
Yeah. And it's made for Michigan State to have some pretty comfortable wins and some pretty not super stressful wins. I mean, Northwestern was pretty back and forth, but Michigan State, I mean, with that 19-0 run, or I guess was against Indiana. They took over too. They had a big run against Northwestern too.
I can't tell you what day it is.
In both of those games. And it's been fun because like this is kind of the point last year where Michigan State dropped a couple games, kind of middle of January when they went on that West Coast trip. Now they've taken care of business in their first game in Washington. Now on Tuesday night, they will take on Oregon to try to flip instead of going 0-2 in the trip, going 2-0. And I think that would set up this Michigan State team very well to be competing for a Big Ten championship into February, into March.
Which is no small feat ever in the Big Ten. This year, I would argue even more so. I mean, outside of like maybe Maryland, Rutgers, maybe Penn State, but like they gave us trouble on the road. They gave Michigan trouble. Like no one in the Big Ten is bad. And I think that's part of why you can't ever go into any of these matchups thinking like, oh, yep, this is going to be a win. So the fact that it was so breathable during the Washington game, like on the road, on the West Coast, says a lot. Yes, it's Washington. However, they have really grown from where they were last year. And it's, again, just like it's no small feat to be able to pick up that win. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. If we can continue to have this level of consistent contribution from the guys that have been playing, I think it's very well in hand that Michigan State could be competing for Big Ten championship.
Especially, too, like if you talk about the depth of the Big Ten, but then you also look at the top end of the Big Ten. Michigan State right now in the newest AP poll is number 10 in the country. There's 4 other teams in the Big Ten who are in the top 11.
That's nuts.
So, and this might sound...
That's like half of the top 10, half of the top 11 coming just from the Big Ten. That's crazy.
And this might seem silly to say because it might seem obvious, but like I really think that like the Big Ten championship, yes, some of those matchups when those teams are facing each other are going to be huge. But when it really comes down to, I think, is what of those teams is going to not lose games that they're supposed to win, you know? So obviously these West Coast trips are a big opportunity. We've seen how much teams have struggled traveling across the country, but Washington and Oregon are 2 teams that Michigan State shouldn't lose to.
Correct.
And the more you can win those games you're supposed to win, I guess the more margin for error you have in some of those other games where you might not have to sweep Michigan to win a Big Ten championship. You might not have to beat Purdue on the road to win.
You don't have to beat Nebraska on the road.
Right. And we've seen from Michigan, obviously they've lost a game at home against Wisconsin. Obviously, Purdue and Nebraska is still undefeated in the Big Ten, but these are the games you really, as silly as it sounds, you have to be able to win.
Because you can't afford to have this loss. You need to be able to have the room to have the loss somewhere else. Not that we
Right.
ever want the losses, but like that's the reality when you're playing in a conference that is this stacked. You cannot afford to win or to lose a game that you need solidly in the win column because it
Yes.
just amps, like you said, it ratchets up the pressure for the road Michigan game, for the road Purdue game. Like it just makes your life harder in a lot of other aspects. Now, before we get into Oregon too much, like I feel like there's a few more things I want to reflect back on from the last couple of weeks. And not to drag the conversation back too much, but you and I have talked about, or maybe more like me being like, Jonah, don't you think this? So here, I'm gonna ask you a question this time. And I'm gonna try not to make a leading question, but I don't know how to do that perfectly. What do you think has been the element that has allowed Cam Ward and Jordan Scott and Kurtang to kind of separate away from maybe Denim Wojcik? I don't know if we even need to put him in that category. Jesse McCullough and Trey Fort when it comes to like getting more minutes, getting more of Tom Izzo's trust, and being really guys that the team and the fan base can trust.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, because those three guys really have, I think, separated themselves as the key guys off the bench. I know it's usually kind of Kurtang or Divine starting, but outside of that core four of Fears, Carr, Cooper, Kohler, as like the three guys that I think you trust the most, that you're not nervous about when they're on the court. And I think a lot of the reason they've been able to carve out the roles that they've been able to is starting on the defensive side of the ball.
Just like Tom Izzo loves. You wanna get into Tom Izzo's little heart. You play really good defense, and you do not stop hustling.
Yeah, and I
time.
think that's something we've seen from all three of these guys. Like, has there really been a moment at all this season when you've questioned any of those guys' effort or intensity?
I feel like Kerr had like one bad game of defense, and that was a while ago. Like he has been earning that spot back. And yeah, Cam Ward is always hustling. Jordan Scott doesn't quit for anything when he is in the game. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
And I think with Kurtang, like I think when you're maybe comparing him directly to Trey Fort, I mean, he's been somebody that has been knocking down his shot more consistently. Like I said, he's at least had multiple threes, I think, in the last 3 or 4 games. Something that Trey Fort can't say. And he hasn't been getting the run as Kurtang, but Izzo has said about Tang, even going back to last year, that he's the best shooter on the team, And I think even kind of maybe early in this season when Tang wasn't hitting his shots as much, you still saw that Izzo had faith in him based off of how much he was continuing to play him, either starting or off the bench.
We caught glimmers of that too, like him showing up at MSG and just like knocking down shots. It's like you knew he had the ability. So I guess that's my question maybe for Kerr is like, what do you think it is that has been like helping him really solidly stick that or like have that consistent? I have an answer that I think, but I'm curious like what your thoughts are and what has been the it factor for him.
I think a lot of it too is just like this team and the coaching staff has continued to believe in him. I mean, sometimes Izzo doesn't have a very long leash with certain players, and we've seen at times Izzo kind of fluctuate his minutes, but really like continue to put him out there and playing significant minutes, having that continued belief to say like, hey, I know what you're capable of. I know what you can do. Obviously there's areas you can improve on, but like that continued belief, I think has allowed his confidence not to waver, because I feel like he's still, even when he has struggled, he's still taking shots. He's still, I think, being confident in that manner. I think a lot of that has to do with just this team and coaching staff continuing to believe in him and putting him in positions to get better and to contribute more.
Well, and I totally agree with that. And I would argue that that direct confidence from others has helped him continue to channel that confidence in himself. And like, as silly as it sounds, like that is why I think he's been making shots. And I would love to see someone, Andrew, Talks Hoops, if you're listening to this episode, I'd love to see a film breakdown on this if you have it. I have noticed with Kerr, whenever he misses shots, it's because his upper body is always like fading away from the hoop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times you're going to do that when you're not feeling super confident in your shot, when you are not moving to the ball with intention, when you are not handling the ball with confidence, like that's going to translate in how you pull your body up for a shot. And I would argue that the way that I have seen him be able to handle the ball, I mean, you just watch him, like he'll get a pass at the top of the key and he will dribble and bring it around to the side, and it's just like his shoulders are forward, like his body language is forward. And I have seen that in his shot too. When he's hitting it, his whole shot is, his whole body is behind the shot. He's not like second guessing himself.
Yeah.
And I think that also translates to like what has been the it factor for Cam Ward. And you had the opportunity to talk with him. Was it after the Northwestern game? What game was that?
Yeah, after the Northwestern game. Yeah.
Because there's been a video resurfacing of Cam Ward in high school. I'll let you take it over from here.
Yeah, resurfaced of him on high school in a game where he's, I think, repeatedly scoring on the same defender and kind of gets into his face and says, "You don't work hard." And that mentality,
Maybe
I
an
feel like
expletive
maybe
in the
an
middle of there.
expletive in there, but that whole mentality of like, I'm gonna outwork you, I'm gonna
Yes.
out-hustle you, I'm gonna get this rebound and score through you, is really just like what we see in Cam Ward every single night.
Which, like, if you think about this, you strip this back and you think about this as like a 17-year-old kid playing basketball. Like, you know that these kids can be hot-headed, whatever. I love that the diss that is coming off of this kid's tongue isn't like, your mom sucks, or like, don't you wish you knew how to ball? It's no, you don't work hard. Right? Because he's saying, I work hard. I'm getting these shots over you because I work hard. And like that is Cam Ward through and through. And it was really cute. You showed me the video. You talked to him afterwards and you were like, hey, like, I know this video has been coming back up. And he just starts like laughing right away. And he's like, yeah, that his own loves to use that to like pump me up. But really talked about like how that is a huge part of his game. And just like he's going to keep working hard and showing up. And I think too, he's just spoken really strongly of like the tradition of Spartans who've been in the role that he's been in and like wanting to do them credit, which I just think is like a very remarkable perspective to have as a true freshman coming in who is having so much success. It would be so easy to be like, yeah, I've worked really hard to get to this point and like I deserve it. But instead he's taking like this very humble route of like, no, I need to work hard because these guys all worked hard and like I want to do them justice. Like I want to honor the role that I'm in. And that's just like why we love this team so much, right? Like this is why we love Tom Izzo. I think this is why you always have a group of guys that is like locked in brotherhood, building each other up, challenging each other, because they all want to be here to work hard and they all are here to honor like the teams that have come before them and the work that they've put in. I just think that's,
and they just know what the standard is. They know what the expectations are. And you're seeing that in some of those metrics that can kind of calculate a team's intensity, and effort, and focus is defense and on rebounding. And after the Washington game, Michigan State now is the number one rated defense according to Ken Palm. I need to check now that I'm saying this because before the game, they were the number one defensive rebounding team as well.
Which, like, can we just pause and think about that for a second? So top 10 team in the country, but when it comes to statistics, number one defensive team in the country. Like that's insane, especially when you think about where those stats are coming from. Like, yes, we played the Colgates. Yes, we played the San Jose States. Yes, we played the Cornells. But I'm sorry, we played Arkansas, Kentucky, UNC, Duke, Nebraska. Like, I could just keep listing the kinds of teams that we have been putting these sorts of defensive efforts up against. And yes, we lost to Nebraska, but we also held them to what, like 58 points, like sub 60 points. That's insane. And I think that's something that you are so sick of hearing this from us. The defend, rebound, run starts with defend. You defend well, you can get the rebounds, and that allows you to run the rest of the game the way that you want to be able to push the pace, to be able to get those transition, absolutely nasty slams from going car that we got two sick ones back to back between Northwestern and Indiana. Just absolutely like melt your brain out of your mind. Jonah, after the Northwestern game, because I was there and it happened like right in front of my dad and I, and we were just losing our minds. It was awesome. But I was on Twitter the next day. I think we were in the car together, and you are just like, you just started laughing all of a sudden. And I was like, what? And he's like, I think you watched a different replay. Like you're just scrolling through your Twitter and watching a different replay of Cohen Carr dunking on Northwestern. I probably watched like 8 of them. You're like, do you ever get tired of it? Like I kind of like watch it a couple times and then I'm good. And I'm like, no, like if a new one pops up on my feed, I'm gonna stop and watch it. No,
it's
because it was just that good. Anyway, but the run is now opening up to more than just a lob to Cohen, the lob to Coop. It's driving coast to coast. It's dishing to Kurtang. It's working at you know what I mean? Like we are able to open up our offense in so many ways, but all of that starts on that defensive end.
Yeah, and rebounding as well. Like I mentioned that Michigan State right now has the number 1 Ken Palm rated defense. I can't look specifically on Ken Palm because he makes you pay for this, but according to Bart,
we're cheap like that.
Torvik.
If anybody wants to sponsor the We Got It podcast to get a Ken Palm subscription, I don't think we would say no to that.
According to Bart Torvik, Michigan State is also the number 1 defensive rebounding team in the country and the number 7 offensive rebounding team in the country. So
who's the top offensive rebounding team? Can you look at that? Is there a way to find that out?
I can.
Ooh, I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, it's very easy. I just click Tennessee.
Ooh, not who I was expecting.
So above Michigan State in offensive rebounding rate is Tennessee, Florida, Virginia.
Okay, I expected Florida.
Arizona.
And
Cal Baptist, Wichita State, and then Michigan State.
I'm going to be honest, I don't think I've ever heard of Cal Baptist in my life.
Well, they're a good offensive rebounding team.
Good for them. Go Cal Baptist.
But when you have this element of elite defense and elite rebounding, like when you talked about some struggles that we've seen from this team in the half-court offense, like you can get away on nights with not having your best offensive performances when you're cleaning up the glass at the level that they are and when you're defending at the level of they are. You don't need to be an elite offense to be 16-2 and top 10 in the country.
Well, I'm even just thinking about, like, maybe this is a dumb way to put this, but it seems like anytime I'm watching a game or I'm at a game and I'm given the stat sheet, like Michigan State is consistently beating their opponent in the second chance points column. And I don't think that that's necessarily even that we're getting all of these offensive rebounds. It's that we're getting so many defensive rebounds and preventing them from getting second chance opportunities. It's not that we're like scoring so many second chance points. It's that we are limiting the other team's ability to score second chance points.
It's definitely a bit of both. But when you're cleaning up the defensive glass better than anybody in the country, of course teams aren't going to have a ton of second chance
points. That's what I'm saying. Like maybe that sounds silly, but I think a lot of times we think about second chance points as how many offensive rebounds we're getting and not how many offensive rebounds are we preventing the other team from getting.
Right. And you think about defense and rebounding, like obviously Michigan State is had a great season so far, positioned themselves well, but I think those are two aspects of this team that aren't going to change. Like they're going to be elite defensively and going to be elite rebounding.
And because I think that's not dependent on talent necessarily. It's dependent on guys who you don't work hard. I work hard.
Right. But then I think offensively for Michigan State, like I think the trajectory is only up as you kind of get guys like Cam Ward and Jordan Scott and Kurtang more comfortable, kind of better fit. It's kind of within the team. It's kind of figuring out their roles more. So I think you can see those defense and rebounding metrics stay the same, which is allowing this team to continue to win while continuing to improve and get better offensively, especially in the half court. And that's just a really good thing to fall back on when you're still figuring out some things. I think rotationally, they're still figuring things
Right.
out. They're still figuring out how they're going to incorporate these guys because they're still a pretty deep team and hard to figure out when to give minutes to who and where they're going to give them minutes. And because they've been so elite in these aspects, it's allowed them to still be figuring this stuff out while still being
Yes.
winning these games.
Comfortably leading Washington on the road, like
Yeah.
all of those things. Absolutely. Before we move on to halftime updates and then take like a quick peek at the upcoming matchups that Michigan State is going to have, I think really the only players we haven't spent a lot of time talking about are one, let's start with Trey Fort. He's a guy that I think we've been seeing less and less minutes from. And I think it's just a tough situation, right? Like we were talking about, we needed somebody to be able to step up consistently at the 2. And I think at the beginning of the season, just looking at like who has experience and, who's more of a veteran player, like looked to be more Kurtang and Trey Fort. But you just got to think like Trey Fort is just so new to Michigan State basketball and playing at the Big Ten level. And I think you said it, and I saw somebody on Twitter say it too, like, what do we do with Trey Fort? And somebody answered being like, we need Trey Fort to have another year, but he doesn't have that. Like it's his last year of eligibility. And unfortunately, like I'm not saying this, I want Trey Fort to get there 100%. And I still think that he can be somebody who comes in and no pun intended, holds down the fort for Michigan State, later in Big Ten play and potentially even in the NCAA tournament to be able to give guys some breathers, especially in maybe depending on how the rest of the season goes and seeding shakes out and everything. But I don't see him getting to a point with the amount of time that's left in this season to being, one of those top 7, 8, 8th player contributors. Someone else we really haven't spent much time talking about is Cohen Carr.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a few reasons for that and just like where he's at in his game this season. On the one hand, the man is throwing down dunks every single game to the point where he is doing like mind-blowing dunks and it's like, like, that's sick, but also like, I'm used to this. Like that's at least one of those a game. What are your thoughts? Like why don't you feel like we're seeing him as more of a dynamic no, he is a dynamic explosive player, but like I just feel like things have been kind of missing ever since November. And again, this is one of the things where like I haven't thought why, but I'm curious why you think that.
Yeah, I think he is someone that because his shot hasn't been falling, I think that's something he's worked really hard at, and because he hasn't seen the results in that area that he's hoped for, defenses are playing him really different. Where it's sagging completely off of him, baiting him to take that outside shot, not closing out, because when we've seen him defenses close out fast, that's when he gets the opportunity to kind of get that extra step and get to the basket. And he's kind of, I don't know, just figuring out how to adjust to that. And there's been times where we've seen instead of him taking that shot, he's kind of dribbled it and kind of backed down his man. We've seen some more success. That
which
way.
I love.
But yeah, I don't know if I could really put a finger on it, on just like what needs to change, because like I don't think he's going to become a significantly better shooter during this season, and we've seen stretches where he can be more hot from deep and hit a couple threes. But I don't even think that would be enough for really defenses to play him differently. And I think one thing that the best of Cohen Carr is when he is using his athleticism to his advantage. So especially on the offensive glass. And I feel like he seemed more passive when it comes to rebounding the ball. And especially offensively, when he's more passive, you're not seeing him with as many opportunities in the post with the ball, because there's certain times we've seen Konkar where he's just dominating teams with his athletic
Yes.
ability, with his physicality, and getting those offensive rebounds, getting those putbacks, um, using his strength to get to the basket. And we just haven't been seeing that as much lately. And I know that it's been frustrating for him. It's been frustrating for Izzo, but I'm not panicking yet because I think
No.
we all know what Cohen Carr is capable of, but it's just taking him some time to kind of figure it out and kind of get out of this slump.
Well, and I have kind of a few thoughts on like whether this even is a slump either. Like, I just think there's so many expectations from fans. Maybe, maybe there's the true like he's not living up to where the coaching staff thinks that he should be at right now, but I'm going to speak to just like fan opinions that I've seen and just people being fickle. Oftentimes like these are like probably burner Twitter accounts half the time that are saying these things. But like he doesn't have to be a good shooter to be a good basketball player. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Michigan State is a team that pushes back on that a lot. And if you want to root for a team where you're just going to have hot shooters and, live by the three, die by the three, like Michigan State might not be the best team for you. And I just think like I don't want to start putting my expectations of Carr on like being a good shooter. And I think that's been drawn to the forefront of a lot of people's minds because other teams are playing defense against him very differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just said, they are now sagging off of him, keeping themselves closer to the hoop so that they can cut off those explosive steps that he's so good at getting on
Mm-hmm.
people. And so it's bringing our attention more to what he can't do because they are shutting down what he can do. And so I think there's an important aspect of what you're saying there of like he's got to get more creative about how can I use my athleticism to fight back against
Mm-hmm.
how these people are playing defense. And I think something that goes unsung with him a lot is just the quality of defense that he plays. I mean, I don't think there's many times where I'm like, oh my gosh, Cohen, where are you? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Cohen, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, Cohen, you just turned the ball over. Like, he's so solid in a lot of aspects of his game that I just think we just are so used to. Like, oh yeah, you just dunked with your eyes above the rim. Like, we've gotten so used to it that I think we don't always see or like are reminded of the value that he brings. And like that's why he's one of the starters. That is why he's out there. And I think if he can get his shot to fall, like I'm going to argue, I don't know, Jeremy's been really developing his shot over the course of the season. I don't know, Tang's been really developing his shot across the season. I don't know, Jordan Scott's really been developing his shot across the season. Like I still think Cohen could if he wants to and like has the ability to get there. It is only mid-January. We've got a lot of ball left to play. But even if he doesn't, like I think there's ways that he can bring his game if he can find that kind of like creative get around with
Yeah.
his
I think one
athleticism.
other aspect about him, too, is just positionally. Like, I don't think he is best suited at the three.
Yeah.
And because you have Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper, that's just
Yeah,
kind of
that's a
where
good
you have
point.
to put him by default. I think there were moments against
Which is
Indiana.
really interesting to think about for next year. Anyway,
Yeah,
keep
against
going.
Indiana, a smaller team didn't really have a true center.
Yeah.
They were able to play Jackson Kohler at the 5 and put Carr at the 4 a little bit, and he
Mm-hmm.
had more success
Yeah.
when he's not getting most of his touches on the perimeter. He's
Yeah.
getting them more inside, and he can bully his defender with his strength and athleticism. So I think maybe looking for more opportunities to put
Yeah,
him
that's
in
a
that
very good point.
position. Like if Jackson comes off the bench, like maybe sometimes instead of maybe sliding Cam Ward in there, you slot
Mm,
Cohen Carr at that 4 and kind
mm-hmm.
of see what different looks you can get from him to at least maybe get him going more. Because I feel like the more active he is, the
And to put other teams' defenses off too.
yeah,
Like, oh, we've been scouting him, expecting him to come flying in from the outside. Shoot, I got to deal with him right here, right now, in front of the basketball hoop.
So I think that is maybe something that's contributing. I think
Yeah.
we've seen more success from him when he's playing at that 4 because right now he doesn't really have that outside shot going for him. I think maybe putting him in more situations where he can use his elite traits that he
Yes.
has to his advantage, where they aren't as impactful on the perimeter. Like if you're behind the 3-point line, who cares how high you can
Yes.
jump or how strong you are?
Yes.
You need to put those traits in positions where they can really be leveraged for your
Mm-hmm.
advantage. And I think that's maybe one element that is maybe why he hasn't been having the impact that people have been hoping that he
Yeah,
would
that's
this
a
season.
really, really good point. And, I just thinking through like the true freshmen that we've got coming in next year and stuff. It'll be interesting to see, like, one, if I would think that he's still going to be around at Michigan State next year, but like that could be a really interesting flavor for the team
Mm-hmm.
moving forward too. Like, and even in the season, depending on the matchup. All right, let's turn our attention to some halftime Spartan updates because there are more and more and more awesome Spartan sports jumping into the mix as we head into the spring semester. Jonah, why don't you get us started with your updates?
Yeah, this past weekend, your number 4 men's hockey team traveled to Madison to face on number 2 ranked Wisconsin, who had swept the
Yeah,
Spartans
so I
in
was just gonna
East
say.
Lansing. And the Spartans returned the favor to the
Haha.
Badgers as they came away with 2 victories. Their offense was just playing at a super
Yes.
high level. I think in that second game, they scored 3 goals in the first like 10 minutes.
Oof.
Um,
That's just
and they had a
nasty.
kind of a similar stretch in the second period of the first game, kind of getting themselves back into Big Ten regular season um, title contention. Also now number 2 in the polls, just right behind Michigan. So kind of back to their winning way. So a big series for Michigan State to get the sweep in Madison.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they face Ohio State at home this weekend, correct?
Correct.
And it is going to be a big weekend at home for Michigan State. So you've got men's hockey playing Friday night, you've got them playing Saturday night. Michigan State men's basketball is going to be playing at 1 o'clock noon against Maryland. And then your women's gymnastics team also has a home meet at 1 o'clock on Saturday. So it is going to be a hopping time in East Lansing. Women's gymnastics kicked off in January. They've been off to, I don't know, I wouldn't even call it a rocky start. I feel like it's so interesting in gymnastics. Everything is just a margin of like nothing, essentially. So they
Yeah.
had their first quad meet out in California versus Cal, Michigan, and Kentucky. They came away third in that quad meet. However, like the margin separating them from second was like 100th of a point. Like this is just insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are all against ranked opponents. I think Kentucky was number 9, Michigan's like number 5, Cal was number 20, and then they also lost their meet against Iowa on the road this past week. Again, I think by like less than a point. And then they will face UCLA at home, which you brought up. How the heck is Jordan Childs still
Yeah.
in college? I don't know, but she's probably going to be in East Lansing this weekend. I'm sure doing her incredible floor routine. So if you want the chance to maybe see an Olympian, you should go to campus this weekend. But, maybe you're cheering for the Spartans. Like, be
Yes.
excited for Jordan Childs, but like, you're cheering for the Spartans. Men's tennis team has also started their spring season. They had their first official meet for NCAA play this last weekend, and kind of came away with an overall loss against Kentucky. I think Kentucky won 5 matches, and Michigan State men's tennis won 2.
Men's basketball team isn't the only hoops team in
No,
East Lansing.
certainly not.
The women's team was off to their best start in program history.
Which I'm pretty sure we said it this time last year.
Maybe, yeah, I don't remember.
Or earlier, you know what I
But
mean?
after a home
Just saying a lot.
victory against ranked Nebraska, the Spartans were 16-1.
17-1.
17-1. You're
Yes.
right. And ranked number 15 in the country.
Crazy.
But then they did fall at Iowa this past weekend, who was
Iowa,
ranked
like,
number 11th
yeah,
in the
that's
country.
crazy.
So now they are 17-2, but up to 13th in the country. So a very, very good season. Also with a decent amount of injuries too
Yes.
for this team. So being able to continuing to get ranked wins, continuing to play teams hard with these injuries has been impressive from the Spartans. But they, continue on their season as well, off the best start in program history.
Yeah, absolutely. The last sport we haven't had an update on in a little while is men's football. Men's football? Why am I saying it like that?
Yeah, it's true.
We're talking about a lot of different sports here, and I'm trying to keep them organized in my brain. Football. Transfer portal is now closed.
It is now closed.
How many guys did we end up picking up?
I think Michigan State at this point has gotten like 27 new players.
Crazy. So is there the potential that there could still be more players, right? It's like you just have to enter the portal by the time it closes?
You don't have to find a new team by the time it closes.
Okay.
You just can't enter it. And now at this point, we probably aren't going to see any more additions until
like this semester.
So
Right.
it'll probably be May before,
Okay.
and I assume we'd probably see a handful more. But at this point, it's going to be kind of the team is what it is for spring football, winter conditioning, which got started this past week.
Oh, no way.
But yeah, a lot of new faces. I mean, obviously we don't have time to go into all of those.
But Jonah has a wonderful article that he has been meticulously updating on Spartans Illustrated that gives you like a full breakdown on like what is the roster change, what is the composition, who left, who's coming in, where do we anticipate these guys to be, where did they come from. Like, it's honestly very well done, and it's not, you don't get bogged down reading it. It's just like, oh, okay, I like understand who's on our team, so that when you get to August and we start talking about all of these guys, you're not like, oh my gosh, I'm drinking out of a fire hose and we have a new coach and all these new guys and we don't know who any of them are. Refer back to the article. It's a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, thank you for the plug.
I'm just proud of you, and I think you're super cool. Man, Spartan athletics, so fun. Before we wrap up the episode, let's maybe just like take a peek at what men's basketball is facing down in the next couple of games. As we already talked about, they are going to be playing the Oregon Ducks on the road Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I am so thankful that we don't have an 11 p.m. tip-off. I can handle 9 o'clock. I can do that.
Manageable.
We're good. Oregon has had some players out injured. They still managed to really bring it against Michigan. Unfortunately, they weren't able to pull away with the win over the weekend, but they have Nate Biddle out, their primary big center. And then they also had their point guard out, correct?
Yeah. Jackson Shellstad.
Which you said Shellstad might be back for tomorrow night.
I'm not exactly really sure. He's probably out, but I don't think his injury is as long-term as Biddle's. Yes.
Okay. And you were saying, like, it is kind of surprising how, in quotation marks, like bad Oregon is this season, given that they have so many returning players. But then I think that started this whole conversation of like, is there really, like, are you actually bad if you're playing in the Big Ten this season and like competing decently? And I think they've had some very like close margin games. And so even with Biddle out, even with maybe Shellstad out, like, there is no way that the Spartans can walk into this game being fat and sassy. Like, no way that they can walk in and just expect it to be easier because those guys are out. Like, this is still a team that is competing at the Big Ten level, who's, being able to put it on against a really tough Michigan team with two of their main players out. Like, it's still going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah, still have to bring your A game, still have that goal of going 2-0 on this West Coast trip. Because if they do, they do then have 2 games after that against, again, 2 of the bottom teams in the Big Ten. Maryland, who just got their first Big Ten win, and I think Rutgers, who has 1 Big Ten win. So if you can take care of business over these next 3 games, like I said, like you should, these games you can't afford to lose, you're setting up yourself to be 19-2, 9-1 in the Big Ten, with a game in East Lansing hosting Michigan, which would just be, no matter what happened before, that's going to be massive. But if you can set yourself up to be 3-0 going into that game, that's going to be a massive, massive opportunity for the Spartans.
Well, and like you talked about, like the Oregon, Maryland, and Rutgers games really feel like games you can't afford to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the same breath, I'm going to think back to last season where USC and UCLA games were not games that we could, quote unquote, afford to lose. And then we went freaking 17-3 in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Now, I would argue that maybe the Big Ten is even harder than it was last
Mhm.
season. So I think, like, take that with a grain of salt. But it definitely should not be like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. The sky is falling if we do end up dropping one of the next 3 games. As much as we would all love
Yeah.
for us to take care of business on the road and at home before we have to match up against the Wolverines.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else that we need to think about for Spartan Sports this week?
No, I think we covered a lot of it. Obviously, there's a lot going on. If you're in East Lansing this weekend, there's plenty of games to be at and to support the Spartans.
You will not be bored.
Yes.
You will be entertained. That is for sure. Oh, man. Love you. Thanks for doing the podcast with us. Thank you to all of you guys who are listening. Thanks for putting up with our chaos. I know we've been doing our best, but not been the most regular in getting episodes out. So we really appreciate those of you who've been sticking around and putting up with us. Like we said, we're going to be traveling a bit, and so we're going to try to keep things as consistent for you as possible, but really appreciate your loyalty and you listening in. If you haven't already, we would love for you to be able to send our podcast to a friend. I'm going to shout my mom out here for a second with just, maybe just a little bit of embarrassment. We went to we went to the Northwestern game last week, and bless my mom. We needed to like hire her for I don't know, Mom. We can't actually pay you because we don't make anything from this, but to be our spokeswoman, because I think there was like 3 different people. She's like, have you heard of their podcast? It's called We Got It. You can find it on YouTube. I mean, the poor kid that was sitting next to us got just told all about it, and I'm just behind her going, it's fine. You don't need to subscribe. It's fine. But who knows? Maybe we got a couple more listeners out of that. So if you want to be like my mom, maybe send our podcast to a friend. Give it a listen. Give it a follow. Comment on YouTube, email us at the wegotitpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you love, what you hate, your hot takes, your fan mail, your questions, any of the things. We are here for it. All of that helps our little podcast get out to more and more Spartan fans, and that's kind of the reason that we do this. Otherwise, we'd just not bother with the equipment and the microphones, and we just have this conversation by ourselves. So appreciate you all. As always, go green,
go white,
go state.